Hello, this is Christopher Clarey. Welcome to the second of our Olympic tennis daily review shows here from the Olympic tennis at Roland Garros in Paris 2024. I'm a longtime tennis writer and I worked for the New York Times and the International Herald Tribune for over 30 years covering tennis and global sports. And this is my 8th Summer Olympics in terms of coverage, which tells you how old I am. And my first was in Barcelona in 1992, which was the last time the Olympic tennis was on clay.
Bonjour Chris, bonjour à tous. I'm glad to be here with you. I'm Romain Vinot, French tennis journalist, and I will be with you every day during 10 days, maybe every day and every night, Chris.
Yeah, looking at the schedule, Romain, that could be a possibility, yeah. It could be Paris by night, as you guys say, right? That's the way it works, right? But,
yeah.
So it's going to start tomorrow, Saturday. We're going to be talking about the main points throughout the tournament, the next 9 or 10 days and nights, and we're going to be starting tomorrow here at noon local time in Paris across all the different courts. The ones people who follow the French Open, Roland Garros, will know. Chatrier and Lenglen and Simone Mathieu and all the outside courts. And it's men's and women's singles and doubles tomorrow, and it's a pretty big schedule right off the bat with people like Carlos Alcaraz and Rafael Nadal playing doubles, and Alcaraz playing singles, and Iga Swiatek, the big favorite in the women's singles, playing as well on the Chatrier court. But it's just interesting, Romain, isn't it? I mean, Romain works here year-round. You know, this is home for you.
Yeah, during the year, I am in Roland Garros in the stadium. The office is here, so when I just come from my first day in Olympics here. It was amazing to see the stadium with all the Paris Olympic brand in the. It feels it's not the same tournament, and it's amazing to see the colors, the pictures on the wall, and everything, because we are in Roland Garros. It's a tennis temple, of course, but it's not the same event, and it was great to be here for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've been coming to Roland Garros. My first time in the stadium was 1991, so like 33 years ago. And the stadium has obviously changed so much. I think the only thing that's left from my time really is like the rectangle of clay at the bottom of the Chatrier court. Everything else has changed. But here it is changing again. And, I'm flashing back because this has really only happened once before, where you had one of the, as you say, the temples of tennis, temples of world sport, where it was transformed into an Olympic tennis stadium, and that was at Wimbledon in 2012. And I was there for that. I spent a lot of time at the tennis during that Olympics. And just to see this incredibly familiar place, which is so much residence, suddenly the color scheme changes. Obviously, they don't change the grass. They had a huge challenge there turning the tournament around, obviously, to play Wimbledon and then the Olympics so close together. And it's such an unusual surface anyway. But in a way, the clay challenge is similar. You've got to take this place that had a major tournament a few weeks ago and transform it into an Olympic venue. And I know they're not trying to completely reshape it, but it does feel different. And I think what really struck me when I came in today, I walked through the gates, was just how much more relaxed it felt, at least today. We'll see how it feels once the play begins, but I felt it was so much more relaxed. I mean, I walked down this large allée, this pathway that leads behind Chatrier, which is usually jammed with people before qualifying or before, with qualifying on site or before the tournament. It's actually hard to get through there a lot of times. Yeah. It's just a wide open space, and Kei Nishikori is out there, one of the bigger stars in tennis, doing his calisthenics just by himself, kind of kicking it back. Lots of space, lots of room to roam. The players don't take long to figure out. They adapt, and they're out there doing it. So just the whole vibe, at least in the lead up, is incredibly different, and yet it's still the Roland Garros that we know with the stadiums and once you're inside watching a practice session, it feels a bit familiar in that regard. Anything else that struck you from?
Yeah, just meet the crowd from now. Like you said, the first days was just practicing for every player, every team, and it's feeling different because the players are on team. Like 2 days ago, I was on security, and just behind me, the Italia team with Jasmine Paolini, with Sarah Irani, and everyone laughing during the short waiting, of course. And it was like not only an individual sport, and everyone is tranquille like we said in French, it's peaceful now, and of course tomorrow and the other days we are a lot of a crowd in the alley. But yeah, it's a nice feeling to saw the teams and to saw the players. Like, yeah, they are really very peaceful.
Yeah, it's interesting too. When we talk about this throughout the course of the tournament, but I know the ground staff here pretty well. I've interviewed them over the years for the New York Times and different things that I've done. Philippe Vaillant is the head of that team, and they do a lot of work with the courts. And I was talking to some of the ground staff, and they were saying, even it feels a bit different for us too. I mean, we had to redo a bunch of the courts, not completely, but do the lines, which are painted here at Roland Garros. They had to do all that before Olympics began after Roland Garros, so a lot of work for them. And they have, instead of their usual people who come in, they have a whole bunch of Olympic volunteers who are part of their team. So they're kind of having to re-educate the Olympic volunteers about how to, maintain a clay court, to the highest level possible. So there's a lot of learning curves going on here at Roland Garros at the moment. So Romain, I mean, tennis was an original sport at the Olympics. A lot of people don't know that, but it was, when the modern games were restarted in 1896 in Athens, it was there. Even though the game itself was relatively new, the lawn tennis game that we know was pretty new by then. It had been around 20 years or so. And it lasted until 1924, which was the last time we had Olympics in Paris in the summer. And those Olympic tennis matches were not played here at Roland Garros because Roland Garros wasn't built yet. It wasn't built until 1928, 4 years later. So where were they held?
It was in Colombes, near to Paris. It was another stadium, of course. And, it's making special for this year because it's the first time the Olympics will be in Roland Garros, because in 1924 it was somewhere else. So yeah, the Roland Garros Stadium was built to host the Davis Cup in 1928. So prior to this, the French Open was held alternately at the Stade Français and the Racing Club de France, two big clubs in history of sports in France. So yeah, first time here.
And I guess from what I've been reading as well, I think maybe not the exact spot, but there is a link in that Colombes is being used for field hockey, one of the stadiums out there in the Yves du Manoir Stadium.
Very good pronunciation, Chris.
You practiced that before, Romain?
Yeah, I am, of course. And I was at Yves du Manoir Stadium maybe 5 years ago. It was for the Racing Club de France, the rugby club. And, every place has maybe an historic feeling when you are here. So, yeah, it's a little stadium, but pretty cool to be here 5 years ago.
I love history. I love sports history, love tennis history. So I got to tell you, I took a particular delight in looking back at the winners of the 1924 Paris Olympics tennis tournament. Do you realize that the Americans won every event?
Yeah, I realized that, but it was a long time ago, Chris.
Hey, you got to believe in symbolism. Yeah, it's probably not going to be happening this time, but it was just true. We had Helen Wills Moody, which people may remember that, Vincent Richards. It was an incredible run for the Americans, helped by the fact that your biggest tennis star of the time, Suzanne Lenglen, did not play.
No.
And had won the gold medal at the Olympics in 1920 when it wasn't held here, and missed out. Just as Suzanne Lenglen, one of the biggest stars in tennis history, never played at Roland Garros, even though there's a court named for her here.
Yeah.
But Romain, I got to ask you, opening ceremony is starting today. We're recording this on the Friday. It's a little rainy outside. We're hoping the weather clears for this incredible spectacle tonight on the Seine in Paris. You're French in your early 30s, and how do you view this moment and for your country and for yourself?
Yeah, I think it will be a big time, Chris, because it's one time in life you could see in your town the opening ceremony of the Olympics. I'm glad to be in Paris, of course, to see that. And so with the weather, maybe it will not really sunny, maybe raining time tonight. But it's amazing because it's the first time the opening ceremony will not be on the stadium, but in Paris on the Seine. With all the big monuments in this city, I think it will be amazing for all the photographers, all the people who could be in this ceremony. And during maybe 3 months, This year in 2024, the public maybe was not really happy to have the games in Paris because, of course, it will be problem with the transportation, for the restaurant, etc. But I feel that maybe 7 days, during 7 days now, the people understand the games, and like everything in Paris has games color now, and it will be on the Seine in the middle of the city. Will be amazing, even if raining. Don't care about that.
I'm not French, but my wife is French, and my children are French, and a lot of obviously my family on many levels is, and I can sense too. I mean, blasé is a French word, right? It's the
blasé.
French, and the Parisians, they tend to be hard to impress.
Yeah.
But I think any Olympics is an incredible project for any society to try to organize. Paris has done a lot of big events over the years, of course, and there's been World Cups of football in France. But Summer Olympics is something different. It's really the biggest thing you can do, and it is very symbolic. And I think a lot of cynicism, in my experience, tends to melt away once the games begin, as long as there are no horrible incidents, and nobody wants that, of course not. And but I feel like every games I've been at in the summer, there's a lot of complaints about the infrastructure, a lot of complaints about all the hassles of trying to get the thing organized and all the money that got spent. But once it begins, there is some magic dust that happens, and I'm hoping that happens for Paris. So the Olympics are about to start, and I think it's interesting to talk about what tennis and the Olympics have meant to each other really at this time. And I think it's been important for the sport to reintroduce it. And it wasn't the easiest decision. There was resistance for a long time to the idea, and Philippe Chatrier, for whom the center court here at Roland Garros is named, was I think the pivotal figure really in bringing back the Olympics into the modern list of sports, and I think basically he believed that tennis needed to get as universal as it could get, and that one of the ways to branch out, particularly in a time when we had the Soviet Eastern Bloc, and they were very focused on the Olympics. It was a major priority for them, not always for the best reasons, but they were definitely focused on it. Chatrier saw that as a way to reach it out to all these different countries that were isolated, including China as well. So it was a big factor for him. And looking at just the numbers now, it's been since 1988 when they were introduced. The International Tennis Federation had 104 member nations, and today that number is 213. So it's more than doubled. And a lot of nations and governments began to invest in the sport. Particularly non-traditional tennis nations, because of the fact that the Olympics were there as an option, and there was also funding coming in through that. Do you have any thoughts about Chatrier, or about is somebody that most French people would know what he did? Do you think that's something people are aware of his influence?
Yeah, I hope, because it was really important to have the tennis like an Olympic discipline, and it's great today. We have this. It's maybe 1988. The tennis is really important during the games now, and it's you just have to look at the players and the team, and you can feel it's really important for them to be here for their country, to be here for wins, maybe a medal, or just play the Olympics. When I don't know, maybe an unknown player for the grand public. It will be great for him to be in Paris, to be in the Philippe Chatrier court, on the Suzanne Lenglen court. All these names are history, and it's really good and important to have tennis like an Olympic discipline, of course.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because the debate really was also, okay, well, tennis already has its, in a sense, Olympic moments. It's got these 4 Grand Slam tournaments and a lot of other traditional events. A lot of sports, if you're talking about things like rowing or canoeing or whatever it is, you don't have the same level of big shop windows for your sport every year like tennis did. And I think the idea was that whatever they're going to have in the Olympics, it should be the pinnacle for the athletes who take part in that Olympics. That should be one of the biggest things to win in their sport. I'm not going to say that winning an Olympic gold is for all players the same thing as winning Wimbledon or the French Open, but I do, from my experience, having interviewed a lot of players and having been in a lot of Olympics, I think it's kind of in its own category, and it's something that's very powerful and very meaningful to the players. And a lot of the people that I've met and talked to through the years, people like Andre Agassi and Lindsay Davenport, Roger Federer for the book that I did, Rafael Nadal. Sure, the majors that they won are massive for them, but I think they all hold the Olympics in a very special place. I mean, I know Andre talked about it as probably one of the the most emotional moments of his career, right up there with winning the French Open for the first time. And I know that talking to Nadal about it as well. I mean, Nadal, he believes in the idea of the Olympics because it also, in a way, brings tennis into the wider community of sports. And he views himself not just as a tennis player, but as an athlete. And I think that's something that really has been a big factor. But the emotion people feel. I talked to Elena Svitolina yesterday at the draw, and Svitolina was the first Ukrainian tennis player, to win a medal. And she got misty-eyed talking about it. It wasn't a gold, but she talked about just what that moment meant to her. And she said, I would put it at the top of my list. She won the WTA finals, has had some good runs in slam. She goes, I'd put it at the top of my list of all the things that I've achieved in tennis. So tennis is a little bit of a different thing than some sports, but the Olympics really do matter. It's one thing for me to talk about my memories as a journalist of what it meant to players to win the Olympics or to take part in the Olympics, but much better to have somebody who actually experienced it for themselves. As a player, we have Mark Woodforde with us. We're very fortunate to have one of tennis's all-time great players and all-time great guys with us. And Mark, for those of you who don't remember, was an Olympic gold medalist in Atlanta with Todd Woodbridge, Olympic silver medalist in Sydney, and won 17 Grand Slam doubles titles, 71 titles on tour altogether, part of the Woodies, but he's his own man. Mark, what are your biggest memories? If I just say Olympics to you, what flashes into your mind?
It holds a very dear place in my heart, in my memories of being a professional tennis player. Growing up in Australia, I think we're very much a team-oriented, sports-loving country. Teams are part of our culture, and as a young kid, I remember watching not only some of the great tennis events, but significantly it was the Olympic Games. And of course, coming from Australia, Commonwealth, we also have the Commonwealth Games, which is I guess, identical to the Olympic Games. But the Olympic Games is just such on a grander scale. So, for me to actually have finally been chosen to represent my country at the Olympic Games was, the impact was significant. Just absolutely fond memories, and to be able to, fortunate enough to have picked up 2 medals, that both played a major, were key to the career for the Woodies.
Yeah, the French have this expression sort of says, I guess, wisdom is kind of what's left when you've forgotten everything. So it's kind of what, at the end of the thing, as you go through many years, what's left with you. And where does that Olympic gold medal that you won with Todd, where does that sort of rank in your career in terms of emotions and meaning for you?
Well, in 1996, that was the best year for the Woodies. We were on a tear on the tour. We'd come off winning Wimbledon and having to get ready for the Olympics in Atlanta. So we felt very confident going into that particular year at the Olympics. And I think what really kicked it off for us is as we were practicing one day at the club where we played the games. The torch was being taken around, as they do, pre-event, around as they get closer to the city. And at that stage, I didn't realize what, the weight or the impact of the torch. And we just, a lot of people started to mill around outside of the tennis complex, and the police escort, and you could see these people running with the torch. And I remember Todd and I just kind of like, oh wow, geez, so many people are crowding around to watch. It's just a torch, isn't it? That's going, being taken. And then they, you reach the next person, you connect up, and you pass the torch over. And we thought, this is a bit odd, but that was our first real taste of that Olympic fever, of what it meant. going through that particular tournament though, and reaching the final for us, I think we we realised what the tennis, the significance in world sport that tennis does, because we were walking around the Olympic Village, and of course each country has their little area that they stay in, and Todd and I and the other tennis guys that were there, I was rooming with Mark Philippoussis, Todd was rooming with his old teammate, doubles partner Jason Stoltenberg. But the four of us were walking around, and we were looking forward to meeting other Australian athletes, and yet we realised how big tennis was, because they were actually coming up to us and saying, "Oh, the Woodies, let's have a photo." And here's Todd and I saying, "And there's Kieran Perkins, and this great all-time swimmer, and someone, a basketball player." And it was pretty nice to be recognised under those circumstances, because we just thought we were just kind of a small part of this great venture, this great 2-week venture that was about to unfold. But look, we made our way through to the final, and a significant match for us was the semi-finals. We beat our old-time foes, Jaco Elting and Paul Hauhaus, in a very extended match that it was just hot as hot can be in Atlanta in the summer, and we were able to sneak through that match, and I think we felt it's not like you should never believe that you've won a tournament before you've actually won that final point and shaken hands, but we thought we'd overcome the major hurdle, beating the Dutch pair in the semi-finals. Our opponents in the final were the British pair, Tim Henman and Neil Broad. They weren't a team that played together. They were just put together for the game. So we felt like that in those key moments in a big match, regardless of whether you're playing the Olympics or just a Grand Slam, it's going to be teamwork is significant on key moments, and so we were able to actually get through that match relatively smooth, and the probably the biggest thing for Todd and I that day was how we were going to actually get up onto the podium and sing the national anthem. That was what we were really concerned about, because I didn't know the whole anthem, Todd didn't know the whole anthem, and this probably highlights how Todd and I operated, our teamwork, and how we complemented each other, supported each other. I knew the first verse, so we'd worked out that when we get up onto the podium, I was going to sing the first verse and Todd was just going to kind of mouth it. And then once the second verse kicked in, I was going to just mouth it and Todd was going to be bellowing it because he knew more of the second verse. And that's how we went about it. But there wasn't any microphone around, but I'm sure we sang so off key because I just yelled it out. I didn't want to sing in tune at all. I just bellowed it out because we'd won a gold medal, and to have the tennis guys, our tennis team there watching us. We were staying in our in the dorm rooms on the same level as the Australian basketball team, men's basketball team. They all came out to watch us because you kind of kept supported each other in amongst your own country. But it was just really fantastic. Those little nugget memories that are still with me. So that kicked us off with a gold medal. But we didn't realise back home how much we were known back in Australia in tennis circles. When we got back later in the year to play the summer circuit, the following year in the beginning of 1997, every time the Woodies stepped onto the court, they had to put us on to centre court because they had so many requests and people coming through the gates that they wanted to see the Woodies, the gold medalists. We were one of, I think, 7 gold medals that were won by Australia in 1996. Mm-hmm. So it was right then we realised the impact of what winning gold meant to Australians in general and the support that we received from that point on.
So the emotions of winning are Sounds like they're very powerful, and I love that story about the anthem. That's great. Advanced Australia Fair is a challenge, right? but I'm curious, Mark, is that joy that you felt 4 years later, you come back to your home Olympics in Sydney, and you don't get the gold, you lose in the gold medal match. What was the flip side of that like? And was that one of the bigger disappointments of your career, not to be able to achieve that at home?
Not at all. I mean, if you look at our win rate when we reached the finals, which was very, very strong. So on that side, yes, we did. We came up short, but it wasn't really about us not playing our best tennis. This was a philosophy I think Todd and I just took in general. We laid it out in the final. We put it out there. We'd done all of the work, and we just needed to execute. On that particular day, the Canadians, they upped their performance. We didn't lose the final. Mm-hmm. They won the gold medal. We'd played against Dan Nestor and Sebastian Leroux a number of times. I think most of the time we actually picked up the win, but we were well aware of their capability. But that's what the Olympics does. When you're playing for your country, ranking goes out of the window, and they just elevated their performance. So it was the last match for the Woodies. That actually was the bookend of our career. I was retiring. That I had till the end of the 2000 season. I was retiring. Todd wasn't going to play after that, the Olympic Games, because his wife was pregnant. Both our wives were actually pregnant at the same time, but Todd's wife was a little further along. So the Olympic Games was our final match. And I remember going into the press conference, and there was this kind of like, oh gosh, bad luck, what happened? And I said, we may have come up with a silver medal today, but we look back at our career and it's a gold medal performance all the way. So it just, I know it's only words, but that's how we looked upon it. But we were proud to have actually been wearing the green and gold, and again, we were beaten by a better team on the day.
So Mark, now you're involved with the International Tennis Federation. Obviously, you're here at the Olympics, so obviously it's clear it left a big impression on you.
Yep.
But if somebody asks you, tennis already has 4 majors.
Yeah.
Why does it really need the Olympics after all this time? What's your answer?
Tennis fans follow the 4 Grand Slams. It doesn't have an impact to sports lovers. They're tennis lovers. The Olympic Games reaches every household. I think it is the range is so worldwide and deep in every country. And I think it's a moment where it actually unifies the sporting community. I think tennis is such a major sport anyway, and all sports, all sports do belong at the Olympic Games. And I know that there's been this period of professional Olympic Games was kind of an amateur sporting event, but tennis. It's so very rare in our tennis community that we get to play for your country. To hear game, set, match Australia as opposed to game Woodforde, Woodbridge, if it doesn't bring the hairs up on the back of your neck and chills up your spine, I think they're just getting that taste. Is what can have such a positive impact on anyone's career, whether you're playing tennis or any other sport that's here.
So Mark, but just in terms of the emotions that you felt in your career, obviously there's a long career, a lot of things. Does the Olympics emotional thing kick in a way it doesn't anywhere else?
Well, probably the most emotional that I've ever been. I'm fortunate enough to have had some incredible highs, but I think the one standout memory was for me in Sydney, and I alluded to the fact that we saw the torch in Atlanta go by us, and wow, that's interesting. It just didn't resonate at the time. But in Sydney, Todd and I were asked to run with the torch the day before the opening ceremony, just outside of the city centre. and we got onto the bus with other athletes that had represented Australia at the Olympic level. And as we were moving out to our drop-off point, just to see these Australians that were actually lining the streets, I just, it knocked me. And when the Olympic rep was explaining, you may experience a lot of emotion. It's okay to let it out. We actually, even now, I was bawling my eyes out. I didn't want Todd to actually see it because I was retiring before he was. So I kind of felt like he was going to have, those opportunities anyway. But it hit me that my career was winding down. It was the last time that I was actually playing in Australia. And gosh, I was on the window, so I was looking outside at all of these people, and Todd was just talking over to my right and saying, "Look at all these people, Pekka! I can't believe it!" And I just was crying, and I didn't want him to see, and I kept turning away like a little kid because he said, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I just turned away, and I was like, "Yep." I couldn't even talk. I was like. But I just, he reached over and he said, "Oh, come on." And it really, I just let go. The other people in the bus, these who were older than me, than Todd and I, it was actually this cry fest. I mean, they started handing out tissues to hear grown men, just sobbing. That made me even worse. And I actually, I was like, I've got to kind of wipe this down. I've got to get over it because we're getting closer to our drop-off point. I don't want to get out of the bus and be like, what's wrong with you type of thing. But that just knocked me about. But it is probably my most favorite Olympic memory that I have, that I treasure.
Well, Mark, it's a beautiful story, and I really hope these players who are going to play in this event have something like that happen to them. That's just stays with you your whole life, and I'm getting a little misty-eyed hearing you tell the story myself. I'm going to pass to my esteemed colleague here, Romain, to talk about getting this thing started, and it's happening tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a big day tomorrow, Chris and Mark, because on the Philippe Chatrier, Iga Świątek, Novak Djokovic, and Carlos Alcaraz with Rafael Nadal will be on site, the Świątek and Djokovic, for their single campaign on court, of course. And Carlos Alcaraz will play too the singles on the Suzanne Lenglen. So big day for Carlitos, and big day for Jasmine Paolini too, because she will play on the single and on the doubles. I think it will be a really great starting day tomorrow on court. And Chris, I know you can't miss this match, but night session tonight on the court Philippe Chatrier with Naomi Osaka and Angelique Kerber.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of matches tomorrow. That's a great one. All the more poignant because this is Kerber's last tournament, as she announced, which was sort of a surprise to a lot of us. Mark?
And what is interesting is actually some of these players that are playing in singles and doubles, and obviously and mixed. Interesting how they're approaching it, having to play 2 matches on one day. I mean, for Alcaraz to actually be out there singles early in the day and then coming back to play doubles, interesting how they handle this occasion as well.
It's a really big challenge for the players.
Very much.
But Kerber and Osaka, I mean, they've played a number of times. Yeah. Kerber will always have the head-to-head lead. She's up 4-2, so whatever happens on Saturday night, she's got the lead. But Naomi has given her trouble and upset her at the U.S. Open 2017 in their first match. And then Kerber beat her at Wimbledon the year that Kerber won Wimbledon.
And if Osaka is in the form that she showed us at Roland Garros, where she played a fantastic match against Świątek early on, if she can retain that form heading into tomorrow's match, not only to take out Kerber, but she could work her way deeper into the tournament here.
Could be a great tennis Saturday party.
Yeah, we should just say quickly that there are some, unfortunately, doubts about Rafael Nadal. He was showing some signs of fighting a leg injury. He's got his leg wrapped. He skipped practice sessions yesterday on Thursday, and Carlos Moya gave some interviews to Spanish radio saying it wasn't a sure thing that Rafa would be able to play, particularly in the singles. It sounded like the doubles, whatever it takes to get out there, Rafa's pretty committed to trying. A little bit less court to cover, but the singles sounds like it's a little bit in doubt based on this. And Rafa, obviously, Mark, you know about how it is to push the body. He pushed hard in Sweden last week, probably harder than he expected. 4-hour singles match in one case, and maybe he pushed to a point where.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that also those comments were surrounded that he did it as they were practicing some doubles a couple of days ago. So hopefully that doesn't bring a bad look for but it's different movement, isn't it? Singles to doubles is just those little nuances, but I think he's committed to his Olympic experience, and as you say, that if he's not there competing in singles, he'll try to be there for the doubles, much like Andy Murray, unfortunately withdrawing on the eve of the Olympic event, but he's still competing in doubles.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainties. This is a tough time of year with this long season and all these big events packed together. But we need to look at this tournament and make some predictions. And the ITF have launched a World Tennis Predictor game in time for this year's event. The premise is super simple. You have to pick who you think will win gold in all 5 events before play starts on Saturday. And each day there will be 3 matches, and all you have to do is decide who will win. That's all you have to do, right? The more predictions you get right, the more points you will get. There are some amazing prizes up for grabs, including travel and tickets to the Davis Cup or Billie Jean King Cup finals in Malaga, Spain this November. So make sure you play along. You have to be in it to win it. And Romain and Mark, we've been asked to play as so-called experts here, so we got to put ourselves on the line here, and we're going to take a kind of a quick hitting thing. Go around the horn here and look at each of the events and give our prediction for the gold medal. So, Romain, we're going to start with you.
What a pressure.
Which one? We have women's singles. We're going to go for gender equality here. We'll start with the woman.
Yeah, women's single, Iga Świątek, of course. She's a legend already here in Roland Garros. So, yeah, Iga.
Mark?
Yep, I'm going to go with Świątek as well. I think, as Romain had pointed out, winning the Roland Garros title a number of times already, and somewhat rested after an early exit at Wimbledon. I think it's given her ample time to be ready for this one.
Yeah, I think Iga's shown she's able to, prepare for the big events, especially when she has that edge on the surface and really perform and handle the pressure of being the favorite.
That's who you're going with as well?
I'm going with Iga. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a sweep, which we don't want to have on a panel, right? But
I think debate. For the men, maybe will be different. I will just say Carlitos because I want to see him win Roland Garros, Wimbledon, and the Olympics, right? Like in the old days. So Carlitos for me.
I've jotted down the winners in each of these events, and so far I'm agreeing with you, Roman. This is fantastic. I'm going to go with Alcaraz as well. I just the draw. I know it's quite an interesting upper half as well. We've got the 2 titans up there with Djokovic and Nadal, but I just like the way it could pan out for Alcaraz. And wow, what a result that would be if he picks up gold after Roland Garros and Wimbledon too.
Amazing.
Well, I refuse to have a sweep again, so I'm gonna change it up, and I think I'm taking a chance.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with the fact that in 1992 when they had it on clay last time, there was a little bit of a surprise. My surprise isn't that big a surprise. I'm going to go with Alex Zverev, even though I think he's maybe not 100% physically. I think he's got the game to do it. Best of 3 with his big serve, maybe helps him on the clay a little bit more. So we'll go with that. But we got to pick up the pace here. So let's keep going. What's next?
Yeah, women's doubles. I picked Krejcikova and Siniakova. I know they didn't play last month together, but Siniakova is maybe the best player in doubles now, and Krejcikova just won Wimbledon. It was amazing to see her, and it's one of the best team we have on the draw. So yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I haven't been able to pick a winner in this one. I've actually picked the 2 finalists, which is Krejcikova and Siniakova, but up the other end for the final, because I think it's a real coin toss. But I have Coco Gauff and Jessie Pegula. I think they will be I'd like to see them into the final, but a tough one for me to choose. So sorry about that one.
I'm going to go with, I'm kind of into Roland Garros finalists, I guess, is sort of my thing. I'm going to go with Irani and Paolini from Italy. I feel like they've got so much energy and chemistry, and I think they've been playing some great tennis this year so far.
And I have an Italian feeling too, Chris, but for the men's, I pick Bolelli and Vavasori because they are Roland Garros finalists, and I think they deserve this title. So yeah, Italian connection, Chris.
Well, for the men's, I have gone with the defending champions, I believe, from Tokyo, Nikola Metkic and Mate Pavic.
I'm going to go with that too. It's not a sweep that way. Yeah, they haven't played together this year, right?
No.
So they're going to come back with some freshness. Obviously,
Reunited.
I think they're having good seasons separately, and I think they're going to come together well. And they've shown they can play well everywhere. And I think that's my pick too.
And we have to take a look on the mixed, because I think it's just the greatest draw for the mixed. All the names are great, but I will take Zverev and Sigmund because I think Zverev have a special feeling with the Olympics, and Sigmund, she's a great doubles player. So yeah, maybe this one.
Good choice. Good choice. I agree. There are so many names and possibilities here. But I'm going to go with the American pair, Coco Gauff and Taylor Fritz.
And I'm going to be, I've been sitting next to you enough this week already that I'm feeling kind of half French at this point. So I'm figuring the French need something special to happen. There'd be some magic, right? And they'd have less pressure at the Olympics, I think, than they do at Roland Garros. I think they're going to kind of rise to the occasion. And I don't know, I like Roger Vasselin and Garcia. I think Garcia is a hell of a doubles player. And I think takes a bit of the pressure off her when she's playing doubles. She's able to express her best tennis, can attack. And Roger Vasselin has won the title here before, and I think it's a good combo. A little bit of an outsider combo, but I'm going that way.
Very good choice, Chris.
Allez.
Allez les Bleus.
As Romain and I have been saying, it's allez, allez. And we got to say goodbye to you now, but we really thank Mark for joining us and sharing those powerful memories and explaining to everybody why the Olympics matters, and it does.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
We'll see you from now on. We'll be back here every day for the next 9 days, and I hope you'll join us.